In this video, I'm going to try to explain bookkeeping by starting with the end goal and working my way backwards. I think this should help most of you get a better grasp on what it is that you're trying to do and then how it is that you're going to be able to do it in a fairly simple fashion. For small businesses, the end goal of bookkeeping, the primary end goal is a profit and loss statement from a business on Schedule C if you're an LLC, sole proprietor, or partnership. This would be an 1120S if you're an S corporation, and it would be a Schedule C if you're in real estate. But I'm going to use the Schedule E if you're in real estate. But I'm going to use the Schedule C here to do for this example. Schedule C has three parts to it. It has an income section, gross receipts and sales and returns. It has an expenses section with categories for expenses like advertising, car and truck, commissions and fees. And it has a third section related to inventory and cost of goods sold, where you start with a beginning inventory level, you add the purchases for the year, you subtract the inventory at the end of the year, and that gives you an actual cost of goods sold that you can expense that year. So this accounts for actual inventory adjustments. If you increase your inventory over the year, you don't get to deduct the items that you purchased to do that because those are still assets. So this is the end goal. The end goal is to get to here. The document that you want to create to get here is called an income statement. In Zap Accounting, this is a look at the income statement right here. The income statement is the sum of your income minus your expenses minus cost of goods sold, which is a type of expense, which gives you net income. If somebody asks you how much you sold this year, that's actually your income or your revenues. If somebody asks you how much you made this year, that's generally referred to as your net income. Okay. Now, where does the information, this report generates itself automatically in Zap Accounting. You just click on it and it's here. In another accounting software, you just click generate income expense, also referred to as a profit and loss statement, and it would just generate the report. But where does this information come from? In simplest form, this information is going to come from checking ledgers and credit card ledgers. Okay. A ledger is very simple. It looks just like the old register that we used to use in old checkbooks. It looks like your online banking statement. So in this example, a credit card ledger has a date, a payee, an amount. And then what we do is we provide categories for these transactions. These categories align with the items on this income statement. So if I can simply get all of my transactions from my checking account and all the transactions from my credit card into this form and then categorize them, I'm done. Okay. Now, these categories, this drop down actually comes from something called a chart of accounts. In double entry bookkeeping, there is something called a chart of accounts that has assets, liabilities, equity, income, and expense. For the purpose of taxes and tax filing, you're going to be mostly focused on the income and expenses, although everything is relevant. Okay, so don't focus on the chart of accounts right now. Just know that there's this list that you have to make up, and we'll come back to that later. Now, to get the transactions into Zap Accounting software, we have an intermediate step. These transactions here come from something that I call Raw Transactions tab. The Raw Transactions tab stores raw data as you're going to get it from your bank, and then it reformats that data over here in a format that fits the ledger. So here's the data I got from my bank. It has more columns than I need, and it's not in the right order. So I change the order and add some information like a transaction ID. The conversion of data that goes from this format to this format happens automatically, and it happens from these dark red cells. And this does require a one-time setup. Now, the question is, where does the data come from that populates this area? Well, for some of you, you'd think that comes from your shoebox. For others of you, you're going to say that you're going to take it off your paper statements. But in fact, the best place to get this data is from your bank. Okay, and we have a faux online banking system built to simulate and practice this process. It's called Bilbo's Bank. In this case, I'd log in. If I wanted my checking data, I go to checking. And amazingly, here I have statements to view. And I also have transaction list to view. Every bank allows you the opportunity to download transactions in a comma-separated value format or an Excel file format. Sometimes it'll say Excel file, but actually give you a comma-separated value format. So this is a comma-separated value format, but when they show it, it actually looks like a spreadsheet. So we've just backtracked our way into doing our entire bookkeeping process. So every month, every quarter, once every 6 months, or even once a year, although be careful with the amount of time that you have to download your data, You're going to log into your online banking. You're going to go to your checking account. You're going to open up a statement, and you're going to enter some statement data over here. Now, I didn't introduce this tab early. This isn't critical for listing transactions, categorizing them, and preparing your income statement, but in fact it is. It's a cross-check. So the first step in your process is going to be going to your bank, getting your statement, and entering that information into a statements tab. Into a statements tab for data cross-check. Takes about 30 seconds. The next step in the process, you're going to go back to your banking console. You're going to view some transactions. You're going to cut and paste those transactions. You're going to highlight them and hit Control-C. And then you're going to come over here, and you're going to paste those transactions into a raw transactions tab. I'd right-click, paste special, values only. Now I just cut and pasted that. There's actually one little step in there that's a download. You'll download the file, then open it. Once you've pasted those transactions in here, they'll automatically map over here, do the automated mapping that was in those dark red cells that we showed you earlier. Let me get back to those. So these dark red cells here are going to map that data automatically. You're then going to cut and paste data from here. You're going to say, okay, Control-C, whoops. You're going to highlight this, go Control-C. You'll come over to a checking ledger. You'll go to the bottom, which would be like Control arrow down. Let's get that. This is highlighted because I have this open in another file. But you'd right-click, you'd paste special, values only, and you paste in there. Then you apply categories. Assigning categories is not one at a time. You're not going to go click this, click this. What we do is we have you sort the sheet by name. And then look, once I pick utilities once, anything that's in this same range is going to be a utility, and I can just grab it and drag it down. Okay. The other thing you can do is when you get down to checks are a little tough because there's a lot of checks to do, and you would have to go back to your online banking console to do that. We have a different way of handling checks. See here, for example, here's all the checks, and I had to categorize those. For those, I sort by the amount first. Then I find the checks. So, for example, there's $1,200 checks that are all rent. So once I categorize one, I can just quickly drag that box down and categorize them all. The entire process for reconciling a checking account is about anywhere from 4 to 8 minutes. When I do this, I go back to my statements tab. This second column here confirms that I have all the right data. There's an aggregated reconciliation process. When I'm done with that, I move over to my income statement, and my income statement is complete. And once my income statement is complete for the year, I manually transfer those numbers onto here, or my CPA manually transfers those numbers onto here. They make some adjustments here to the actual cost of goods sold based on inventory, and my bookkeeping process is complete.